Hi everybody, I'm going to talk to you in this video about the difference between a dialect difference and a disorder. And I have my family here so that they're going to play along when we start to play a game and hopefully make it a little bit more interesting. So I have Maggie, my daughter, Grace, my niece, Dawson, my nephew, and my dad's watching just because he knows it's going to be such an interesting presentation. So we're going to talk about a dialect difference is not the same as a language disorder. So I'm going to make this so that I can present it a little bit bigger to you. Dialects are language differences, and the dialect that we teach in the schools is called Standard American English, and that's the grammar or the language of education, and it's the grammar and the language of standards. This is what you teach whenever you are teaching in your classroom. And we do need a standard dialect in the United States because it helps people of all geographic locations, cultures, professions. It helps all of us communicate with a standard dialect. It helps us understand each other. So it's important to have. Now, this is a standard that I mentioned in one of my other presentations, and it's heavily loaded with dialect, standard American dialect references. And this is what you teach. This is the dialect of the standards. So we look at plurals, verbs, verb tenses, subject-verb agreements, comparative superlatives, possessives. When you teach those things in your class, you are teaching standard American English dialect. And that is what you should do. That's what the school expects you to do. That is the standard dialect that we use in education. So I just wanted to show you how that's referenced in the standards. But there are other dialects in the United States. There are many, many dialects in the United States. And some that we experience here are African American dialect, Spanish dialect, and Southern American English dialect. So all of those are different dialects that we have in our part of the country, and there are others too as well. But I just listed some of the ones you might commonly come into contact with. Dialects are valid. They are not wrong. A dialect is rule-based. It's not willy-nilly, and users of different dialects are using rules, just like when we are learning Standard American English. There are rules of grammar and vocabulary that we learn for Standard American English, and the other dialects follow rules as well. They're not the same rules for all dialects. So if you are speaking at home, for example, and you're not using Standard American English, that doesn't mean you have an impairment, a disorder, or a disability. And it's the same for our students at school. If they're speaking in a dialect that's not the Standard American English, that does not mean that they have a disorder or a disability. They're just speaking the language of their culture and their family, which we all do. So a student is not speech language impaired because of speaking a different dialect. Okay, so we're going to play a game. I'm going to show you 3 different sentences and we'll read them to you. And I want you to try to choose the one that exhibits a dialect difference as compared to Standard American English. And remember, a dialect does follow rules. It's a valid language difference. It's not a disorder. So you're going to see 3 sentences. You try to pick the one that's the dialect that would be a valid way to say this sentence. And my niece and nephew and Maggie are going to play along, so I'm going to get out of the screen for a second. Let's see if I can change. Okay, here we go. Round 1. All right, which one is a dialect difference? Number 1, her has 3 dogs. Number 2, she has 3 dog. Or number 3, she has dog. 1. Maggie thinks 1.
Yeah.
1 for Dawson. What do you think, Grace?
Right answer.
Number 1, her has 3 dogs. Okay, we're going to see the right answer. Is she has 3 dog. This is okay because the dialect rule is that no plural s is needed. The number, in this case it's 3, indicates that the noun is plural. So the rule here would be that you don't have to say dogs, and you will hear your students use this in class. Okay, here's the next one. Round 2. Here's the question. Is he a hard worker? Okay, which answer would represent a dialect? 1, yes, he. 2, yes, he is a hard work. 3, yes, he a hard worker.
3?
Grace says 3. Dawson says 3. What do you think, Maggie? I guess 3. 3. Okay, everybody's saying 3 on this one. And that's correct. Yes, he a hard worker. The dialect rule is the copula is not required if it can be contracted to with the pronoun, for example. So you could say he's a hard worker, so that means you can leave out the is. So that's the rule that people are following when they say a sentence like this. Okay, here's round 3. Which one is a dialect? Last week he cooked dinner. Last week he cooks dinner. Last week him cooks dinner. Maggie thinks 1, 3.
It's either. I was thinking either one of those. I'm gonna go with
1. Last week he cooked dinner, and Grace and Dawson thinks last week him cooks dinner. The answer is last week he cooked dinner. And the rule is the verb does not have to include the past tense marker ed, like cooked, because the context or other words in the sentence already tell you the time of the action. Okay? Round 4. All right, here's what we know. John has 1 watch. Okay, which sentence includes dialect? Here is John's watches. Here is John watch. Is John's watch. 2. 2 for Maggie.
Oh, you say 3 again.
3. Okay.
Those are the 2 I was thinking. Okay, hold on. I'm thinking. I'm gonna go with
2. All right.
Yeah.
So it's either 2 or 3, we think. The correct answer here is John watch. The rule is the possessive S marker is not required. It's understood. So again, these are things that are not standard American English, but they do follow other dialect rules. And so there's nothing wrong when a child says this where we're concerned as far as a speech therapist is concerned. Okay.
I'm not good at this game.
All right. Okay. Round 5. Her saw him. She saw he. She seen him.
This one's hard. I'm gonna say 1.
And 1?
I think it's 3.
3?
2.
2. All right, so we got 1 for every
Okay.
answer. Let's see which one. She's seen him. And I hear people say this all the time, actually. So the past tense verbs can be used in place of a past participle. For example, she knowed him instead of she knew him, or vice versa. The correct, as in mainstream English, would be she has seen him, but in some dialects, it's okay to swap them around. Okay, here's a bonus round. Last one. So for the bonus round, pick the one example that is not following dialectical rules. All of the sentences that you're about to read will contain acceptable dialect differences except one. So you understand? You're picking the one that is not following dialect rules. Okay, pick the one that's not a dialect difference. Okay, I'm going to read them out to you. Happy birthday. She ain't coming home today. She ain't got no money for nobody. Her sees 2 fish in the pond. I can help you. Just ax. That dog bark at me. We be sleep. They is riding in the street. You alright?
We've seen it.
Okay, so which one do you think is not dialect? All of them except one are okay.
7. I'm saying 7.
7? Okay.
I just said I hadn't thought about it for like 2 seconds.
Maggie and Grace? Don't think too long. Teachers are waiting for us to move on.
I'm gonna go.
10.
I'm gonna go with the first one.
First and 1. Okay, so somebody said number 1, happy birthday. That is actually okay because in some dialects, instead of saying TH, the F sound is made. Which one did you say, Maggie?
10.
10, you alright? That one is okay because sometimes the L and the R in the middle of words are left out. And also the copula is left out.
Papa says 6.
Papa says number 6, just acts. That one is okay because sometimes that is how that word is pronounced in some dialects. And Grace, which one did you say?
I said the first one.
I said 7.
What did you say?
7?
7. Dawson said 7. That dog balk at me. 7 is okay because those are some different ways that th is produced. Sometimes the last sound on a word, like dog, is left off, and like at is left off. And Maggie
8.
says 8. We be sleep. That is okay. That is one
Twice.
one that the be verb is used this way sometimes, and this would kind of be like meaning we sleep a lot. That's what that sentence kind of means.
Wait, so which
Okay,
one?
so let's see. The right answer is her find to pish in the pond. So we would never say pish for fish. If you say that, it truly is an error. And we would not want to say her as a subject. That does not follow a dialectical rule that we're talking about today. All of the others are valid. So, good game, guys. You're all very good. A few final thoughts for teachers. Teachers teach students standard American English, and teachers do not have to know all of these dialect differences that I've gone over. Students do need to learn to code switch, and that means they use standard American English for assignments and educational tasks, although they may use a different dialect with friends and family. Speech therapists are required to analyze students' language to make sure we do not count dialect differences as errors. So if a child is speaking in dialect, we do not consider those errors. School-based SLPs work with students who have speech and language impairments, and dialects are not impairments. So I hope that's helpful to explain why sometimes you may say a child has horrible grammar, but we say they're not eligible for speech and language because their horrible grammar may just be following a dialect. So I hope that was helpful. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.